12,000 years ago, when humans were still hunter-gatherers, someone built this. A massive stone temple, older than Stonehenge, older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Built only with stone tools, before cities, before metal, before civilization as we know it. This place is called Göbekli Tepe, and it might be the oldest temple on planet Earth. Imagine a monument built 6,500 years before Stonehenge, 6,900 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza, 10,150 years before the Shore Temple of Mahabalipuram, more than 10,400 years before the big temple of Tanjavur. And this was built when agriculture had barely begun, when humans only had stone tools. Yet, somehow they carved enormous pillars, transported them and arranged them into monumental structures. This place is called Göbekli Tepe, and it has already rewritten human history. Göbekli Tepe was constructed near the end of the last ice age around 12,000 years ago. Archaeologists now believe that several more structures are still buried beneath the hill. Some estimates suggest that parts of the site could go back 15,000 years. And here is something astonishing: only about 5% of the site has been excavated so far. Researchers estimate it could take another 100 to 150 years to fully uncover this ancient complex. Göbekli Tepe reminds us of something humbling: our understanding of human history is still incomplete. Sometimes history waits silently beneath the earth until the moment it decides to reveal itself. The location of this site is equally fascinating. Göbekli Tepe lies just 12 kilometers north of the Fertile Crescent, the region widely believed to be the birthplace of agriculture around 11,500 to 12,000 years ago. This raises an intriguing possibility. Göbekli Tepe could have been built either before agriculture began or just after it began, which means this monument stands exactly at the turning point of human civilization. The site is also located about 500 kilometers south of Mount Ararat, where some researchers believe the remains of Noah's Ark may exist. If the biblical flood occurred around 4,300 years ago, then Göbekli Tepe would have already been standing there for over 7,000 years before that event. And interestingly, Göbekli Tepe lies roughly 5,200 kilometers from Tamil Nadu by land. When we look at ancient civilizations across the world, it makes us wonder how many stories of humanity still remain buried. One of the most striking features of Göbekli Tepe is the circular layout of its structures. Why circles? What did they represent? The answer is still debated, but one captivating hypothesis suggests that these structures may reflect cosmic knowledge possessed by the people who built them. There is no direct proof yet, but one pillar has drawn extraordinary attention: the enigma of Pillar 43, the Vulture Stone. This pillar is known as Pillar 43, often called the Vulture Stone. Carved on this pillar are several mysterious V-shaped markings. A research team from the University of Edinburgh, led by Dr. Martin Sweatman, studied these markings. They counted something remarkable: 365 V-shaped marks. If this interpretation is correct, these marks may represent the number of days in a year, which would mean the people who built Göbekli Tepe were carefully observing solar cycles. The markings also appear in clusters. Some researchers believe these groups could represent lunar months. If this theory is eventually confirmed, it would completely transform what we believe about humans who lived 10,000 years ago recorded history. But a question naturally arises here: why use a V shape? Why not any other symbol? One possible explanation is surprisingly simple. V-shaped cuts are very easy to carve into limestone. For thousands of years, humans used simple notches and lines to keep count. In fact, archaeological evidence shows similar counting marks as early as 20,000 years ago. So, the V shape may simply have been a practical way to record numbers. The same researchers also suggest something even more fascinating. Certain animals are carved on the pillars, and that may represent constellations in the sky. Some believe the large bird carving could represent a solstice marker. If this interpretation turns out to be correct, Göbekli Tepe may contain one of the oldest astronomical records in human history. But it is important to remember these ideas are still hypotheses, not confirmed conclusions. Now let us look at another mystery. The enormous T-shaped pillars. Why were they shaped this way? Archaeologists believe the shape may represent human figures. The horizontal top section could represent the head, while the vertical pillar forms the body. This idea comes from several important carvings found on the pillars. Many of them show arms carved along the sides of the stone. These hands appear to rest on a belt and loincloth carved around the waist. This strongly suggests the pillars were meant to represent stylized human beings. This interpretation becomes even stronger when we look at another nearby archaeological site. Just a short distance away lies Karahan Tepe, the sister site of Göbekli Tepe. There, several T-shaped pillars have clear human faces carved onto them. This discovery reinforces the idea that these pillars symbolize people or perhaps powerful beings. Interestingly, the idea of human-shaped pillars appears in several later civilizations as well. In ancient Greece, the Erechtheion temple features the famous caryatid columns, pillars shaped like human figures. Many Indian temples also contain pillars carved as human or divine forms. And in almost every case, these structures appear in places of religious or ritual importance. Which arises an intriguing question: if the pillars of Göbekli Tepe represent humans, who were these figures meant to represent? Ancestors, spiritual guardians, or perhaps beings that held sacred significance to the community? Another curious detail appears on many of the pillars. Carvings of dangerous animals like scorpions, snakes, and other forms of predators. Some researchers interpret this combination in an interesting way. Perhaps these human-like figures symbolize protectors of the community from these predators, guardians standing between humans and the dangers of the natural world. When we marvel at sculptures created 1,000 or 2,000 years before, they already seem extraordinary. But if these interpretations about Göbekli Tepe are correct, then we are looking at symbolic art created 12,000 years ago, and that is truly astonishing. The final mystery: there are many interpretations of Göbekli Tepe. Some emphasize astronomy, others emphasize ritual. Some believe it was a gathering place for many hunter-gatherer groups, and every explanation seems possible at this moment. But the real answer may still be waiting beneath the soil. Remember, only 5% of the site has been excavated so far. The rest of Göbekli Tepe is still sleeping on the ground, and it may take another century before we fully understand what our ancestors built here. Until then, Göbekli Tepe remains one of the greatest mysteries of human civilization. See you in the next video.